Thousands of citizens took to the streets in several areas of Argentina after President Javier Milei announced an emergency decree with over 300 measures that strictly reforms the country's economic structure, favoring large enterprises. Troops of the Zionist government of Israel extended the massacre in Gaza in spite of international rejection. During the last massacre, the number of dead victims rose to more than 20,000. And Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi asked the Philippines to give top priority to the proper handling of the current maritime situation between the two nations. Hello, welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. Thousands of self-organized citizens took to the streets in several areas of Argentina after getting to know the decree of urgent necessity issued by the government of President Javier Milei. In Buenos Aires, the capital of the country, there are massive concentration around the Congress Square, under slogans such as "the country is not up for sale" and with a call for a general strike. Thousands of Argentines rejected the government's plan. Beyond the experts' opinion, the citizens are opposed to the repeal of several laws and regulations that leave aside social rights in order to privilege privatizations and the business sector. The peaceful protest took place in the first hours without the presence of the police. In this context, hours before President Javier Milei, through a national chain accompanied by his cabinet, announced a mega decree of necessity and urgency that included 366 reforms to implement the deregulation of the economy without going through the National Congress. The regulation includes the repeal of at least 30 laws, among them those of rents, supplies, industrial promotion, and one of that prohibits the privatization of state companies. The measure announced by the ultra-right-wing president establishes the total deregulation of the state and gives full power to the market in health, rent, labor, and the food market. It also states that all restrictions on the supply of goods and services, as well as any regulatory requirement that distort market prices, impede private initiative, or prevent spontaneous interaction of supply and demand, shall be null and void. The Brazilian Senate on Wednesday promulgated the historic tax reform approved last week after 30 years of legislative debate. This move simplifies taxation in the country, accepting the basic products of goods and introducing progressive taxes on luxury goods. The President of Congress, Rodrigo Pacheco, credited this achievement as making a change in history of Brazil, as a turning point and a decisive point. In this sense, Pacheco pointed out that the South American nation now has a new tax system that simplifies and unifies the taxation of consumption and services, providing protection for the basic food products, medicines, and sectors related to education and health. On the other hand, the Brazilian President Lula da Silva on social networks praised the tax reform law and emphasized that it is a 30-year-old victory and that the big winner is Brazil. And Uruguay Senate approved the home detention law for people over 65 years old, thanks to the votes of legislators of the government coalition, but without the support of the opposition Broad Front Party. In this bill, it is confirmed older adults who are sentenced to imprisonment will have access to the benefit under certain conditions, as long as it does not imply a risk for society. In this way, the bill seeks to guarantee a benefit for prisoners over 65 years of age so that their health or human dignity are not harmed. Also, this proposal of the ultra-right party seeks to free prisoners for human rights violations during the last military dictatorship. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro received diplomat Alex Saab on Wednesday at the Miraflores Palace, hours after being released in the United States, where he had been jailed under charges of alleged conspiracy money laundering. The president thanked those who led the process of Saab's release and rescue in conditions of integrity and reiterated that the diplomat was unjustly kidnapped in Cape Town for his only crime of trying to go around the criminal blockade imposed by the U.S. on Venezuela and look for medicines in times of COVID-19 pandemic. The Venezuelan president also thanked the solidarity movement Free Alex Saab, which was made up of people from various nations, including Venezuela and the United States, and highlighted Saab's resistance and courage during his more than 3 years of unjust incarceration.
Proud patriots who resisted 1,280 days, 14 months, the conditions most adverse, most painful of kidnapping, incarceration, torture, physical torture, psychological torture, threats, lies, and later, of 1,280 days, he has triumphed. The truth has won. Justice has won.
President Nicolás Maduro also condemned the fact that the evidence presented by the government of Venezuela was not valid in Miami or Bogota.
Our people will know all the truth, how he had to face lies. Not even one of the proofs that were given from Miami and Bogota were true. The only truth of a brave man, of an entrepreneur, nationalized in Venezuela, whose only fault was to seek to overcome the sanctions, the criminal sanctions against Venezuela, to look for medicines during the pandemic. He was captured then and kidnapped.
Diplomat Alex Saab dedicated a few words of thanks to the people of Venezuela, its president, and his family for not giving up and not leaving him behind.
Thank you, Venezuelan people. I feel proud to serve the Venezuelan people and serve this government, a loyal government that don't left anyone behind, a government that never gives up like me, and a people that will never give up. Thank you, Mr. President.
For her part, Alex Saab's wife, Camila Fabri, expressed her emotion for the reunion with the Venezuelan diplomat.
I haven't eaten, I haven't slept. I'm very excited. The girls, who since yesterday are ready to see their daddy. Charlie, who today is finally going to meet Alex, who she only knows by voice.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Thursday, the troops of the Zionist government of Israel extended the massacre in Gaza in spite of the international rejection. During the last massacre, the number of dead victims rose to more than 20,000. While the UN Security Council postpones decisions that could save lives, the Israeli occupation army continues its military deployment throughout the Strip. In turn, on Thursday, the Palestinian Ministry of Health reported another massacre in Khan Yunis, one of the most besieged areas of the Palestinian enclave and home to Yahya Sinwar, leader of the resistance movement Hamas. It should be noted that according to the official data, the Tel Aviv regime has killed 8,000 children and 6,200 women, but under the tons of rubble, there are still many bodies. On the other hand, local authorities confirmed 52,600 wounded under the Zionist siege. In Lebanon, the Israeli army bombed a Hezbollah headquarters, killing one citizen and seriously wounding another. According to the Lebanese television channel Al Manar, the attack carried out by Israel took place between the towns of Qiyam and Kfar Kela. The Israeli army confirmed that the bombing was carried out in response to the earlier firing of 4 shells into the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. In addition, the army reported the elimination of more suspected terrorists who had approached the border between Lebanon and Israel. Hundreds of container ships have been forced to detour to South Africa to avoid the Red Sea route under the control of the Yemeni National Salvation Government. The Yemeni Ansar Allah movement, in its pledge of loyalty to the Palestinian cause, is blocking the transit of ships linked to Israel and its allies. Under the premise that if food and medicine do not enter Gaza, they will not enter Israel, they have built an impassable checkpoint that forces major shipping companies to take longer routes. Fares have increased, and even consultations on the China-Europe Rail Express are on the rise. Washington is trying to organize a task force to clear the pass, but has not yet announced that it will be operational. And the senior Hamas official said on Wednesday there would be no further negotiation about the release of hostages until the war against Israel in Gaza ends.
We have been clear for some time that since the occupation stopped the temporary truce, we have informed all parties about the clear and specific position that there will be no negotiation on the issue of prisoners before stopping the aggression. This position has been communicated to all parties, and we have nothing to add on this. The focus now is to stop this aggression, especially since our enemy now knows that it cannot achieve any of its goals. In all of its attempts to recapture any prisoners, they are getting them back as bodies or remains. As for the future, Israel does not own the future. We are the ones who own the future, and we are the owners of the future, as there is no future for this occupation on the land of Palestine. Only the Palestinian people have the right to decide their fate and choose its leadership, and whoever is delusional to think they can come on a U.S. or Israeli tank to Gaza or any other part of Palestine, Palestinians will consider them an agent and traitor against the cause and the people.
The U.S. Senate closes in 2023 and warns no more aid for Ukraine for now. President Joe Biden had guaranteed the resources to his counterpart, Vladimir Zelensky, during his most recent visit to Washington. The Democratic and Republican leaders of the U.S. Senate confirmed the decision on Tuesday that Washington would not be able to approve new aid to Ukraine before the end of the year as the two sides continue to search for a compromise. They said they would continue to work in good faith to finalize their agreement. Both Chuck Schumer, leader of the Democrats, and Mitch McConnell, leader of the Republicans, agree that there are priority domestic commitments. Since October, many warned that the spigot for Kiev was going to be turned off. President Vladimir Putin assured that his country is the sole guarantor of the sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine. The head of state made the statements during his speech at an enlarged meeting of the board of directors of the nation's defense ministry. The Russian leader emphasized that the West saw that it was impossible to achieve its goals by legal means since Russia was working with the Southeast, so it decided to stage a coup d'etat. The president pointed out that after the separation from the Soviet Union, it was only Moscow that defended the integrity of the Ukrainian territory. However, he stressed that if they did not want to receive Russian help, he would respect Kiev's decision. In this context, Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday inspected modern weapons at an exhibition in Moscow and awarded medals to soldiers taking part in the military operation in Ukraine. Russian Defense Chief Sergei Shoigu and Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov guided Putin through the display at the Defense Ministry showcasing the state-of-art weapons on the Russian army, including drones armed with explosives and various rifles and military vehicles. Putin also awarded soldiers with golden stars, medals, and praised their courage. Putin stated that he knew of their attitude and the attitude of all the soldiers and commanders, and was therefore confident they would achieve their goals, securely protect the people, the sovereignty, and the security of the homeland. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi asked the Philippines to give top priority to the proper handling of the current maritime situation between the two nations. Wang Yi, in a telephone conversation with his counterpart from the Philippines, Enrique Manlalao, who had requested the meeting, asked for more importance given to this matter. Beijing and Manila have been exchanging signals in recent months over clashes between coast guards, fishing boats, and other vessels in the South China Sea, a strategic trade corridor that both nations are claiming. Specifically on the Ren Al Reef issue, the Philippine foreign minister expressed hope that agreements acceptable to the parties could be reached and that tensions could be cooled to avoid conflict. And voting in the Democratic Republic of the Congo extended into Thursday, a day after a general election marred by widespread logistical problems that saw some polling stations that never opened. The impoverished but mineral-rich Central African nation held 4 concurrent elections on Wednesday to pick a president, national and regional lawmakers, and local councillors. President Felix Tshisekedi is running for a second term in office against a backdrop of years of economic growth but little job creation and soaring inflation. The vote on Wednesday was marked by massive delays nationwide, with the Electoral Commission still attempting to deliver materials to voting stations long after polls were meant to have opened. In some cases, polling stations never opened. In France, the unions of the General Confederation of Labor called for disobedience against immigration law. One of the main federations of workers of the state informed that they will take initiatives of resistance against the immigration law adopted by the parliament. Said law threatens the possibility of nationalizing foreign workers in jobs with labor deficit in the country. At the same time, the CGT announced that in the coming weeks, large-scale mobilizations will be called in rejection of this law in defense of their rights. On the other hand, the government defended its position, which considers that the reform contributes to the fight against irregular immigration and integrates foreigners in a better manner. Severe flooding has hit northwestern Australia as a result of the passage of Cyclone Jasper. Australian Emergency Management Minister Murray Watt reported that at least 150 people were deployed on Monday to assist with emergency relief and evacuations in several towns that were cut off in the far northeast of the country. The government sent emergency helicopters to evacuate residents of the towns between the indigenous community of Wuhal and the town of Port Douglas, north of the city of Cairns, which are the areas most affected by the flooding. And on Tuesday in Argentina, the Meteorological Service issued a red alert for extreme heat and a yellow alert for storms in some provinces of the country. Authorities informed that a heat wave of up to 32 degrees is expected on provinces like Jujuy and Misiones. Meanwhile, other Provinces like Corrientes, Formosa, Chaco, and Neuquén will be affected by rains, thunderstorms, and possible hail. The nation's meteorological service recommended citizens stay hydrated, avoid physical activities, and also avoid exposing themselves to sunlight. In Thailand, the cave where football players and their coach were trapped will be partially reopened for tourists. The cave was the scene of an episode that shocked the world in 2018 when the teenagers of the Wild Boar football team and their coach were trapped for more than 2 weeks, triggering an almost impossible rescue operation carried out by divers, sailors, and hundreds of volunteers. In this sense, more than 5 years later, the cave was reopened to the public, consolidating it as a tourist site. Guided tours have a maximum of 10 people per group, and only 2 groups per day are allowed to enter. During the 3-hour tour, a local guide explains the operation to visitors while they can observe the tools used in the rescue.
Tourists can witness with their own eyes the area from which the boys and their coach were rescued. Although Chamber 3 of the cave is only 800 meters from the entrance, it takes about an hour to cover a distance of a guided group tour. During the rescue mission, which involved about 300 to 400 people, it took about an hour to get the boys from Chamber 3 to the entrance. It would be an incredible experience for tourists.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories at our website at telesurenglish.net, and also join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.